With the former governor of the state of Mississippi, the one and only Haley Barbour. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Paul. I'm great. It's kind of a sad occasion because of work, but he had a full, great life and was so successful in so many things.
He was. I don't know. Could you hear the Gallo archives a few moments ago in that story he told?
Yeah, about no water. You know, Wirt's political life did not have moderation in it. You know, it was not about being in the middle of the road. He had strong opinions. He spoke them, and he gave a lot of people good advice. His witness it when he became chairman of the Republican Party. There wasn't a Republican Party, literally, 1956, and today there's the Republican Party is the larger party in the state. I don't want to overstate it because I don't think the Democrats are forever the minority. But it's a part of a lot of this is a tribute to Wirt Yerger and guys like Clark Reed and Billy Moore.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because I've been around long enough too, and been in politics since the Charlie Sullivan days, a little before that, and you start thinking about the chances of you winning a local election, and God forbid a state election, was just almost nil. You talk about the phone booth. That's basically true. There just wasn't a lot. You could find some at the country club maybe, but that was it. They had no political power whatsoever.
Well, when I went to work for the Republican Party in the 1968 Nixon campaign, there were 3 Republican mayors in the state. One of them was my big brother, who had got elected mayor of Yazoo City that spring, actually as an independent because the Republicans didn't have a line on the ballot. He had to run as an independent. And we had Laurel and Columbus, no legislators, zero, none. No Republicans in Congress from Mississippi. And little by little, and it was evolutionary, Paul, but little by little that changed. And I'm glad Wirt got to see this.
Well, and he got to see also I think the final equation of that was when that last part of it was put together, and that was when the grassroots to the local level, the sheriffs, the supervisors, and all of that switched over to the Republican Party, and he had to be pleased with that. I mean, you are right. I mean, the guy's a Jackson native. He was a graduate of University of Mississippi. He also had a military background, a lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force's Strategic Air Command. So, but you're right. He didn't. I don't think he did anything halfway. I mean, he was full gun no matter what he did. What do you think the magic was about finally putting that together and the unbelievable rise since he took over and through the years?
Well, Paul, I think it is very important it was evolutionary. It didn't just happen overnight by any stretch. Wirt was chairman of the party from 56, and that's when the Mississippi Republican Party was first recognized by the National Convention, until 66. And as I said, when I came to work for the party 2 years later, we had no legislators. I mean, we had run some good races. We had, made some, started building up a party at the grassroots level. But I spoke with Bill Clinton the other day, and I made the point. William Winter asked me one time, he told me in 1979, before the filing deadline, he was thinking about running for governor again. Did I think he ought to do it? And I said to the audience, in my mind, I was thinking he's the best Democrat that we might elect. And what are the chances we're going to elect a Republican? Well, it had been 100 and something years we had not elected a Republican governor. And in fact, we didn't elect a Republican governor for 12 more years. Kirk Fordyce in 1991. So
that's right. Yeah.
it was we people who are younger or that maybe didn't live here shouldn't think this was just some explosion. It wasn't. I mean, Reagan. I mean, Thad Cochran and Trent Lott in '72 made a huge difference, and then Reagan in 1980 made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
But still, when I was elected governor, and the whole time I was governor, we did not have a Republican majority in the State House of Representatives. I had a Democrat majority the whole 8 years in the House, and only had a Republican majority in the Senate 1 year. And that's all these years, and we're talking about 2011 when I went out of office.
Yeah, and I remember where our friends, people like Steve Holland and so many of those guys back in those days, all Democrats,
That's right.
were going to eat up the governor and spit him out because it's a weak position as governor. It didn't turn out that way, though. So it was different.
The Republican minority in both houses were very faithful to me, and I think in one sense it was because they were in the minority, and they felt like they had to be. And I could get enough Democrats to pretty well stop anything. I never had a veto overridden, and obviously a lot of Democrats had to vote with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
But for thinking about the history of the Republican Party, we were still the minority party in the State House of Representatives in 2011. That's, 55 years after Wirt was chairman?
Yes, and I constantly mention on the air that the whole template of the state, the foundation, everything, our laws, were all put together by over around 140 years of complete domination from Democrats with almost no Republicans. And in the short span of time that the Republicans have put things together, we've had remarkable progress. I remember talking with Wirt on the air when he was with me, and we gathered that soundbite from that. When we started SuperTalk, and Steve Davenport had this idea, and then people just, knocked him back 1,000 times. That's a dumb idea. And then we grew from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and we kept growing. And the feedback that we got back in those years, how dare you talk about these Democrats? I can't believe they're doing this in our hometowns and then going to Jackson acting a different way. But it was a remarkable transition, and thanks to people like Wirt Yerger for heading it up.
Oh yeah, never would have happened without Wirt and his energy. And you mentioned the country club. I used to call them the J.C. Boy Scout Club crowd. that most of the Republicans were young. I remember Trent Lott telling me one time that if the Republicans had controlled Mississippi state government for over 100 years like the Democrats, he'd have been a Democrat. See, he wanted change.
Yeah,
and absolutely. These people did want change, and whether they were country club Republicans or J.C. Republicans or just people who were ready for us to get into the 20th century.
You mentioned something a few moments ago. It's a little bit scary, but I know it's factual, and I'm going to ask you when we come back here in the final segment. You said somewhere down the line, Democrats may, regain this and be back in the majority, which is a frightful thought, more now than ever before. But what do you think the Republicans have to do, or what maybe they have to be really cautious about? And I think you can look back on this last session for some data on that one. I'll ask that to former Governor Haley Barbour when we return, spend a little bit more time talking about Wirt Yerger, passed away. Survived by his wife, Mary, 2 sons and a daughter, and 10 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren. Back with more coming up next. Let us return live to the Trustmark Studios. Trustmark's retirement planning will fit your plans to a T, as in Trustmark, people you trust, advice that works. Member FDIC. Let's get back, final segment here, quick one, too. With Haley Barbour, what do you think the Republican Party has to avoid or make sure they watch closely as the years tick by and the next election comes up?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to realize you got to keep making progress. You got to keep showing people what you're for and why you're for it, and why it helps their communities and their families. You can't just be against everything. That was one of the great things about Reagan, the progress that we made during Reagan's period as president. And of course, he did it always with the Democrat House. You know, had a Democrat majority in the House the whole time. But you can't just sit back and be for nothing. We've made a lot of progress in Mississippi. You noted that, Paul, in the last few years. Some of it was hard, like Katrina, but we made progress, and the state's better. But we've got to keep pushing forward. And also, when I got reelected governor, I got 25% of the black vote. You know, we want to be a big party. There are all sorts of Hispanics and African Americans in Mississippi who agree with the Republican ideas of a free enterprise system. That they want. They're committed to family, and they're committed to government that is pro-family. And so I just think if we'll keep thinking like that, you know, Lee Atwater used to talk about the Republican Party was a big tent, and that's the best way for it to be. That's the way for it to be the most successful, not only politically in elections, but in getting the results that make lives better for people in Mississippi.
Yeah. When you go back and you look at things, and I know the new state song, new state flag, from your days, the formation of, and even before the casino industry, and then sports betting, lottery, medical marijuana. Some people may say this is an advancement. Some may say it's not. Regardless of which way you look at it, we've done an incredible job. The teacher pay raise. It took a while, but it was done under Republicans, not Democrats.
Well, it was, and you know, the biggest budget for our State Department of Education came when I was governor. We kept the promise of continuing teacher pay raises that Amy Tuck and others had been very strongly for. But in 2007, if I remember right, we had a peak budget. We had the biggest budget we've ever had, and we did that after Katrina, which was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I was at this Wirt Winter Memorial this week, and one of the things that he talked about was once you get started in education, you've got to keep going. It's not something you do one time. When you talk about workforce training, it's not something you do one time. It's lifetime. And the same way for our school kids, they've got to continue to learn, to grow, to get the skills that allow them to have the skills that give them good jobs and make more and more money. And we're doing a lot better job of that today than we've ever done before.
Yeah. I know you worked on workforce development, and that's one of the things that was key in your administration. We're continuing to do that, and I think that's going to be a big part of moving us ahead. I wish we had more time. I was sitting there thinking I'd love to ask you about what you think about the state Supreme Court and the leak in Mississippi. It's good to hear the name Mississippi in a progressive way in Washington, D.C. And Dobbs. I asked Dr. Dobbs when he was on with me the last time, what does he think having his name? And it's got to be a little bit surreal. But your thoughts on the leak and what's going on?
Well, issue is, first and foremost, the leak. I mean, we've had a Supreme Court since the beginning of our country, and as far as I know, this is the first time it's ever happened.
Yes.
And usually when something happens that's never happened before, there's something going wrong, and that's, I mean, they need to find out how this leak occurred, why it occurred. That is, what was the purpose of whoever leaked it. But this undermines people's confidence in the court. You know, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, you know, when they think somebody can just be leaking out what's being written, what's being said, what's being proposed, that's not how a court system's supposed to work.
Well, it is a little bit scary, and again, as I mentioned yesterday when we were talking with Mandy, I said, you know, if the Chief Justice doesn't make an example of this, it's going to fall on his shoulders. One final question here, and I'll just ask you to please, if you could decipher this for me.
Now, there have not been many senators from Delaware. It's a small state. As a matter of fact, there's never been one.
I don't know if you heard it. Let me play it again.
There have not been many senators from Delaware. It's a small state. As a matter of fact, there's never been one.
Where did that come from?
Oh, God. Show prep takes about 16 hours longer than normal trying to get some of the bits from this guy. There's never been, as far as he knows, a senator from Delaware. I think I really believe that he's rode to the other side of the Rubicon, and I don't know where we go from here.
Well, certainly he's not the moderate that he talked like he would be during the campaign. This is at a time when our country is pretty evenly divided, 50-50 in the Senate, single-digit majority in the House. I think 27 Republican governors, 23 Democrats, or something like that. We're pretty evenly divided, and he is running as far to the left as he possibly can. And and the left in the Democratic Party is not only in control of his administration. You know, they're trying to push him further to the left.
Yep. Do you think? And I saw the fence going up around the Supreme Court of the building. Do you think they may issue a report earlier than they normally would on this?
I just would be guessing. I don't know what they're going to do, but they better get to the bottom of how this happened and to assure people credibly that it ain't going to happen again.
Yeah. Well, the guy that's all the fingers are pointing to him, he's in the news and there's pictures out there. So and once that happened yesterday, I think it was on yesterday by 10 o'clock in the morning, may have been earlier than that. But you would think he would step up and call a press conference and say, no, it ain't me. But apparently his silence is speaking loudly, and that's a little scary. The one and only
can be very loud.
Yes, the one and only governor. Governor's always good to have you on. I appreciate you so very much, and it's good talking to you.
Oh, Paul, great. Love your show, and I'm grateful anytime you have me on.
You got, listen, we're doing a twofer today because apparently you spoke to my brother in broadcast, Steve Azar, and you're going to be on this afternoon with him.
Yeah, Steve. Steve played at my inauguration. He is a great supporter and a friend.
Well, all those Delta boys have to stick.
Those would end up coming on the same day.
So that was a token that he got from you. I understand. I said all those Delta boys have to stick together. Governor, thank you, sir. Appreciate it very, very much, and look forward to getting you back on.
Take care.